Hello. Hey, y'all. Okay, yes, I know it's late. I know it's late, but I said I was gonna do a video about this, so I'm here. I know I'm a little late, but I had to get everything in check. Okay, I had to test my mic for the longest. I don't know why. But yeah, I wanted to okay. I already know. I know my audience. I know some of y'all like, now Yona, I don't know why you even talking about this. I don't even know why you even addressing this because this is like so 2016. And I know, right? I know this is old. This is old news. But here we are cuz I needed to go live to talk about my comments in my previous video. Now, if you see your comment up on the screen, okay? I'm not I'm not being mean, okay? I don't want y'all to think that I'm trying to like bully anybody, and I'm not bullying anybody. I just have to set the record straight. I just have to get this off my chest because, yes, like Tyron said, people haven't graduated. Yes, it's some of y'all have been on my channel for 10 years. I've been talking about this for 10 years. All right. So let me go ahead and hop right into these comments. Let me see how I share my screen again. I have not been on what they call this thing, um, StreamYard in a while, and I don't want to click on. I should have tested this before I went. Okay, like don't. Oh, okay. This is how you do it. Yeah, they changed it. They changed like a lot of this stuff. You lost your TikTok account. What happened? What happened, Tyron? How you lost it? You new to my channel? Welcome to the channel. Okay, so these comments, you just can't make this ish up. Okay, so in this video, I talk about how Chris Brown is a reclassified Indian, but Black Americans refuse to accept it, right? In that video, I talked about how this researcher, mind you, he did phenomenal work. He did solid genealogy research. Yet people were still in the comments calling him black. Even the researcher said he's Black American all around, even though he just proved that Chris Brown is not only Aboriginal to America, but how he's also a reclassified Indian. And if you don't know what a reclassified Indian is, because literally I just came up with the term, a reclassified Indian is an indigenous person that is not legally seen as American Indian. So for all you Black Americans who swear up and down that Black Americans are American Indians, no, you're a reclassified Indian who took on the name Black American voluntarily or involuntarily. That's what a reclassified Indian is. And in my honest opinion, reclassified Indian describes the situation better than just people outright accepting a label that was forced upon indigenous people. So before I go all into a rant, let's let's talk about these comments. Cuz this first comment, I saw this comment when it first popped up. This person said, "So what about the transatlantic slave trade? What does that have to do with Chris Brown's ancestry?" Because like I said, that man did some pretty solid genealogy work. He didn't mention the transatlantic slave trade. So why is this person mentioning the slave trade? I don't understand. Like what why would you bring that up? Why would you bring that up? What was the point of bringing up the transatlantic slave trade? But let's move on to this comment. This person said both can be true. I'm black. Hold on. Man, I think I need to okay, what is so okay. It says both can be true. I'm black. Dad's side is black. Black. Mom's side, Choctaw, Cherokee, black. What? It's the norm in my family. I'm sorry. Like, honestly, why y'all don't be, like, reading the stuff y'all be typing before you comment? It never I would never understand. Okay, so anyway, continue on what he said. He said, "It's the norm in my family, Birmingham, Alabama. Black is racial, cultural, and ethnic. No, black is a misnomer. Y'all keep trying to make this label something that it's not. And I know all you know is black, okay? I know all you know is black. I know since you've been, you know, since a little baby, they've been telling your ass you black. You black, you black, you blackity black. You seen, you know, people that look like you on the TV screen talking about how they black and they're proud, but they're selling you a dream. And now I'm at the point where if you're telling me that you're black, you're literally telling me that you're mixed with African, that you have African ancestry. Black is literally a label that they used to class us in with Africans. That's why anytime when y'all say black Americans are American Indians, people get mad, they get angry because they think black equals African. And y'all are trying to change their mind about it, but you can't because for hundreds of years this is how they laid down the foundation. Race is literally a social construct. Race is not synonymous with biology nor genetics. Anyway, let's move on because I'm I'm gonna skip this comment. And then I thought this one stood out to me because someone said that his song originally said maybe it's that Indian in me that have a young and go so hard. The label made him put maybe it's that Virginia in me. And I think that really does speak volumes because I don't know if this is true or not, but I wouldn't doubt it if it is true because the labels, they are very notorious for misleading our people. James Brown literally said on national TV that he's Apache Indian, but he was paid to make a song called "I'm Black and I'm Proud." I'm just ponder on that on your own time, okay? And then another person said, majority of Black Americans are Native Indians. Not all are kidnapped Africans. Majority of the kidnapped Africans are in the Caribbean. Actually, it's in Brazil, but And then you got this comment. I don't know what this person got going on here. Native Indians' origin is the Asia/Africa continents. Remember, we are talking 12K years ago, the Americas were uninhabited. That's literally a lie. I don't know why y'all be in my comment section lying. Let me go back to y'all comments because I'm sure y'all are blowing up the spot. They mixing the dope. They are. Because what do you mean? What do you mean the Americas were uninhabited 12,000 years ago? That's a lie. I'm sick of people. I'm sick of y'all. I'm black as hell, but my great grandfather was Cherokee. How are you black as hell? So it sounds like you mixed race. And also, I want to mention this too, because how these people categorize mixed race people is always astonishing to me. Because people say, "Oh, majority of Black Americans are American Indians." No, a lot of Black Americans are actually mixed race, but they're still being called Black. And y'all don't find that suspicious? You don't find that suspicious? The only time when they want to acknowledge the Black American demographic being mixed race is when they want to debunk the Black American demographic indigenous ancestry. They'd be like, "Oh, well, no, you're not. You can't be indigenous because you have that white ancestry. Yeah, yeah, Black Americans. Yeah, they are white. They're also white too. So if Black Americans have white ancestry, wouldn't that make them mixed race or multi generational mixed?" I don't know how y'all be letting them pull the wool on your eyes. That don't make no sense. Another person, Black people are Indians too. Paleo Indians amongst the first to inhabit the Americas. No, the Aboriginal Americans are the first to inhabit the Americas. All these other stuff are misnomers. Because although I use the term reclassified Indian and American Indian, don't get it twisted. Those terms are still misnomers too. Those terms are misnomers too. And that's the thing too. Y'all be missing the plot. Y'all be missing the plot. Y'all hear stuff on TikTok and y'all like, "Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, Black people everywhere." Y'all start using racial slogans to prove your ancestry. And then be like, "Well, my grandma said." And don't get me wrong, oral stories from your family is just as solid as finding genealogical documentation. Because in order to do the genealogy resource, you have to talk to the source, which is your elders, your parents, your great grandparents, whoever. I mean, if they're alive, your great grandparents, if they're alive. But anyway, which brings me to my conclusion. A lot of you don't understand reclassification. And if you claim that you do, it's not completely getting through to you. It doesn't make any sense how so many of you are fighting to keep this racial slogan. people are confusing their emotions about black with the etymology and historical use of the word black. I don't I mean, I be seeing people post complete word salads about the word black, like, oh, black means beautiful, black means warrior, just like just all this stuff. And it's like that's what you want the term black to be. Y'all are not looking up the origin of the word black. And I already know some of y'all gonna talk about Kemet, y'all gonna talk about Europeans, y'all gonna talk about the Moors, but we're not the Moors. We're not Moors. We're not Egyptians. Y'all, and this is the problem too. This is the problem too. Too many of you are just now coming into these spaces, and y'all have been carrying these pro-black and pan-Africanist narratives about the black demographic, right? No matter if it's black American, black African, black Asian, whatever. If they have the term black stamped on them, y'all take those narratives of the so-called black demographic from around the world, and y'all like, okay, cool. I'm coming into Aboriginal American spaces. Let me take what I learned over the years into this space, and that's just not going to fly with me. And that's not going to fly with a lot of Aboriginal Americans either. Because so many of us have fought for our identity. And that's what y'all are not understanding. Y'all are fighting to keep an identity our elders and ancestors did not want. Keywords, did not want. Literally in this video of this man talking about Chris Brown ancestors, he talked about how Chris Brown's ancestors were illegally enslaved as indigenous people. And they fought reclassification. And y'all in the comments talking about some, well, black people are Indians too. That's not the point, fool. That's not the point. The point is the people you claim to descend from did not want to be identified with memory thieves labels. They was like, hell no, take that black shit off my race. That we are not that. I come from this nation. My people come from this nation. We are not black. And y'all in the comments talking about some, well, I don't think black people are Africans. Not all black people are Africans. Black people are Indians too. What's not clicking, Stephen? What's not clicking? And then here's another fool talking about pseudo history. This man literally broke down the documents he found. And you calling his genealogy research pseudo history. I'm tired of illiterate people. I just can't. I'm not always the brightest crayon in the box. Like I'm not sometimes, I stop and think and I have that AOL dial-up tone in my head when I'm thinking because I'm processing something. And I know some people be like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you just standing there looking crazy? And it's because I'm processing information. Okay. It may give NPC character vibes, but I'm thinking, all right, my brain is buffering. So sometimes it takes me a while to fully understand something or just comprehend what's being said to me right then and there, right? Okay. So, like I'm not saying I'm the smartest. I'm not saying I know everything, but golly, people. And I replied to her comment, but I just ended up deleting it because I was like, well, let me just go ahead and just make this video because I might as well just talk about this directly in my video. Let me go back to see what y'all talking about. Exactly. Exactly. Forehead kiss. Okay. See what she said? She said, we are not honoring them when we embrace these racist terms. Exactly. Especially when they fought so hard to get rid of those labels. All right, hold on. Let me go back. He is trying to let people know that to be black is to be American Indians. Black is a reclassification in 1924 Racial Integrity Act. Y'all, okay. This is how I know y'all are new to this information. Y'all bring up the Racial Integrity Act and Walter Plecker every chance y'all get. Anytime when y'all are introduced to new information, a newer way of thinking, y'all bring this shit up. And it's so annoying. Like, stop. Learn something else. They've been calling us black way before 1924. Be so fucking for real. Like, honest, y'all, I don't be cussing. But I'm just tired because I'm noticing a pattern. This is that TikTok BS I be talking about. This is not TikTok, but I seen this play out on TikTok too. When I'm telling people how to research their genealogy and not listen to what everybody else is telling them about it, I have people video replying to my comments talking about, well, Walter Plecker, heifer. This is not Virginia. This person is not from Virginia. Why are you talking about Walter Plecker? A part of doing genealogy is also learning the history of the state they lived in, your ancestors lived in. I know not all y'all mofos are from Virginia and was living in Virginia during 1924. Be so freaking for real. Hey, my loves. Hey, welcome. Welcome, 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 welcome. Hey, Corey. It's Corey in the house. It's Corey in the house. Uh, uh. Hey. No, let me stop because I have a lot of info to go over, and I'm trying to not be on here for 3 hours like I used to be back in 2020. Y'all remember when I used to do lives and it'd be like literal like 6 hour or 8 hour lives? Yo, no, okay, I'm gonna try to keep this an hour and a half at most. Okay, because no. All right. So we talked about this comment section and hey Morgan, how y'all doing? Hey Damien. Okay, so let me stop screen share. Okay, and let's go. I'm gonna exit out of these comments because I'm over it. I'm like, okay. So I got another thing I want to share with y'all too. Okay, let's look up the etymology of the word black. Okay, yes, I'm going there. I don't want to hear you moaning and groaning. Okay, I know some of y'all like, Yona, this is baby stuff. We already know this. Okay, well, there's new people that don't know. Obviously, I have to go back and go over this information. So I gotta blow the dust off and go over this information again. Again. All right. I want to point out a thing I noticed in the origin and history of the word black. All right. Mind you, this is an online website going over the etymology of words. Okay. So we going over the word black. Okay. Notice, I'm just skimming for y'all right quick. Notice nowhere does it say that this term comes from Africa. It says Old English though. We know what Old English is. And it's not American Indian and it's not African. It's England. It's from the English, okay? So I'm not gonna read this whole thing because I'm pretty sure y'all can see with your own eyes what's going on here. But let's start from the top, okay? Old English, black, absolutely dark, absorbing all light of the color of soot or coal. Are y'all the color of soot and coal? Cause I ain't. Do y'all look like them little soup ball things from Spirited Away? Them things that be doing drugs. I'm sorry. 'Cause that's the first thing that came to my mind. Like, yo, like we y'all we are not suit creatures from Spirited Away, okay? Y'all are not throwing the coal in the fire to help that multiple armed man make herbs and stuff for the bathhouse. If you know, you know. Okay, so it says reconstructed to be from Proto Germanic. Yeah, Germanic. Okay, mind you, we ain't German. Burned. Y'all burned. Norse. Dark. Now could be dark. Swedish. Black. Ink. We ain't no ink. We're people. Then you have this to burn, gleam, shine, flash. Now I know for some of y'all want to be associated with those words. Maybe not to burn, but maybe shine and flash. You know, maybe when it comes to your jewelry, but you're a person, okay? You're not supposed to be flashing. That means you're radioactive and you need to go somewhere, okay? You need to be in the lab somewhere if you're flashing. To burn, scorch. Again, burn. Do y'all want to burn? To blaze, glow, burn. I know y'all be blazing that Mother Nature, but as a person, you should not be blazing. Okay, maybe crumbling the herb and blazing the herb. Now I know for the ladies, we all know some of we love to glow, and I may let y'all have that one glow, okay? Because we want our skin to glow, glisten, beautiful. But there goes that word again, burn. So consistently we see burn throughout all these meanings. Then it says the same root produced Middle English Blake pale. Are y'all pale? The same root produced Middle English Blake pale from Old English black, bright, shining, glittering, pale. And that's the thing with the word black too. They say that the surname Blake can mean either one of pale complexion or one of dark complexion. So it can really go either way. So I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to be identified with a word that can go either way. Give me a name that is suited for me and me only. I'm not pale complexion. I'm not colorless. 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 There we go. Colorless. Wan. Livid. Wan, wan, whatever. I already say it. Okay. Black was used of dark-skinned people in Old English. Of coffee with nothing added, attested by 1796. The meaning fierce, terrible, wicked is from late 14th century. The figurative senses often come from the notion of without light, moral or spiritual. Latin Niger had many of the same figurative senses: gloomy, unlucky, bad, wicked, malicious. Why would I want to be associated with a word? I don't mind fierce, but terrible and wicked, gloomy, unlucky. You're literally casting spells on yourselves by calling yourself this term. Unless you have European ancestors and you identify with them more than your American Indian heritage, I could see why you would want to use this word to call yourself. But I'm not English, baby. Like I have some European ancestry, I'm not gonna lie. But it doesn't mean I have to identify with what they call people like me. Anyway, the metaphoric use of the Greek word melas, I think that's how you say it, however, tended to reflect the notion of shrouded in darkness, overcast. In English, it has been the color of sin and sorrow at least since 1300th century. Why we gotta be the color of sin? The sense of with dark purposes emerged 1580s in black art, necromancy. It is also the sense in black magic. Then they give us like black drop was a liquid preparation of opium used medicinally. Black fly was a name given to various insects, especially an annoying pest of the northern American woods. That like they're literally calling us stuff that they associate with undesirable. Literally. And y'all are fighting to keep this word. Y'all are fighting to be like, no, well, black Americans are American Indians. Why would you want to be associated with black when, for one, it can mean either one of pale complexion or one of dark complexion? And it's literally associated. with words that are not appealing. And also to burn, like everything talking about burning. As much as people talk about how Black Americans don't have documentation because the documents were burnt up, like I'm starting to see the connection here. It wasn't the documents that was being burned as much as y'all was saying. It's literally you're allowing for them to burn the paper trail in your mind. Like all this is in your mind. I'm not saying they didn't burn documents. Now don't get it twisted. Not saying that they never burned documents. What I'm saying is this is literally all in your mind. A lot of this stuff is in your mind. Oh, they burned documents. Hmm. Did they burn documents or put black on your documents when black also means to burn? And we all know what happens when things burn. Little to no trace is left behind. Circa 1200, become black. Make black, darken, put a black color on. Especially clean and polished boots, shoes by blackening and brushing them. Old English black. The color black, also ink, tested from late 14th century as dark spot in the pupil of the eye. The meaning dark skinned person, African, is from 1620s, perhaps late 13th century, and blackamoor is from 1540s. The meaning black clothing, especially when worn in mourning, is from 1400, circa 1400. Blackamoor, dark skinned person, black skinned African. That's another thing too. You Moors, y'all get on my nerves. I know this is random, but like y'all really do. Y'all be like, the American Indians are Moors. No, we're not dark skinned Africans. Be so for real. People just be saying anything. Why aren't you reading from the first dictionary that a Black Foundation American wrote? Because it's literally the same across the board. The term black is not American Indian, period. Why is that so hard for y'all to understand? like what difference that gonna make? Are you European? At this point, y'all, some of y'all be sounding like the ops. Y'all be sounding like Europeans that be wanting to keep us in check. Cause a lot of y'all be on my comments talking about, black Europeans is over here messing with us. That's what a lot of y'all sound like when y'all be pushing this black word on us. Maybe some of y'all are the black Europeans that some of my audience be talking about. Cause y'all, I don't know. It's a little suspicious. It's a little suspicious. There's actually another source I wanted to go over. Cause one thing about me, I'm gonna look at stuff. Wait, nope, wrong one. Okay, yeah. Okay, here we go. Let me see if I can see it. Okay, there we go. Okay. Then we have the Merriam-Webster dictionary that everybody is familiar with. Okay? Because if you know about the definition of American, then you know. Oh, look, it's same. Look at here, having the very dark color of the night sky or the eyes pupil of the color black. Okay, something we saw similar in the etymology of the word black. Okay, black or less commonly black. Okay, of or relating to any or of various population groups of especially African ancestry, often considered as having dark pigmentation of the skin, but in fact having a wide range of skin colors. Of or relating to Black people, and often especially to African American people or their culture. Dressed in black, dirty, soiled. Oh my God, that's like they really have you calling yourself after something they also associate with being dirty and soiled. Ain't this crazy? All these words come from someone else before us. I don't know about you, but I'm not Black European. Mind you, dark skin inhabited the world way before the light skin even entered the chat. So dark skinned Europeans more than likely wrote these words, wrote these dictionaries. Well, for them, pertaining to like Middle English and stuff. Cause that's the thing. That's the thing too. Y'all don't want to see things for what it is. Y'all want to give these names things that you want to associate with goodness, not knowing that you're casting spells on yourself. Talking about transmute words. You can transmute the negativity people place onto you to better your life, but knowing the negative connotations to a word that people have given you and then saying, "Oh, we can transmute that." Have y'all not seen Easy A? Y'all seen on Easy A? Okay, so since you're a man, right? Let me break it down for you in a way a man can understand. Okay, let's say, right? Cause on the movie Easy A, it was a white woman. Okay, she was in high school. She let this boy lie on her and say that he, did the do with her. And what happened? People started treating her like a slut. And she got to the point was like, well, I don't care if they call me a slut because I'm going to embrace it. This girl she stitched an A on her corset and walked around school. People were calling her all types of names, calling her slut and everything. She didn't care. And she would have boys pay her like in like gift certificates or gift cards or whatever, saying that, they did sexual things with her. So basically, she was, being a fake prostitute until a boy came up to her thinking that she actually did that, right? Because he didn't know that she was just lying. She was taking these gifts in exchange of saying that she did stuff with boys. And this man tried to make a move on her, and she had to like fight him off. She was not a real slut. And it did benefit her for a while. But when you accept the labels that people give to you and that's not you, eventually it's going to catch up with you. And I would know that because obviously I'm a woman. If I was to come on here talking about I'm a hoe, I'm a slut, I'm this and I'm that. Sure, people could be like, oh, okay, yeah, she is. She says she is. It could end up like an easy A situation where people give me stuff in exchange of me saying that they did stuff with me. But what happens when shit gets real? What happens when something happens to me because a boy thinks that he can go that far with me without my consent? And then when I open my mouth to tell people what happened to me, they're like, oh, why are you complaining? You're a slut. You're happy to be a slut, right? Be happy to be a slut. Y'all not understanding that our ancestors were either being labeled as black forcibly, meaning they didn't want that label at all, or they took on the quote unquote black identity, the black perspective, the black label, and hid their identity so they wouldn't be dragged to the reservations or worse, unalived. Because, yeah, you can transmute the negativity, but how much longer until it's something that you can't control? Because there's always going to be pros and cons to everything. Words don't move without. Hold on, wait a minute. I was reading. Words don't move without your own intention, even if someone else speaks them. Y'all just don't know who y'all up against, and it's okay. You're just gonna have to learn a little bit more. You're just gonna have to come across more information because you're talking about intentions and stuff. It's on a whole nother level when your ancestors are going through not only forced relocation, but being assaulted sexually, physically, spiritually, mentally, psychologically. You're talking about attention. Meanwhile, they're fighting to keep their mental intact. That's okay. Let me break it down to you because since you claim to be black, let's put it in a different perspective for you, right? Let's say that word on the street is that you the most meanest, nastiest thug out there, right, on the streets, right? People say that you got bodies on bodies on bodies. And that's not you. You don't claim no bodies. You ain't that dude. But you let people go off that narrative. Cuz in your mind you're thinking bad publicity is still good publicity. People fear you when you come by because they're like, "Oh man, that's that dude, man. I heard things about him. He be getting, man. I heard he unalived children off the playground. He's shooting up everybody. Like, you hide your kids, hide your wife." But then the police come and snatch you up. And they're like, "Hey, you know, we heard you committed this unaliving." And it's it's the police, right? You're not gonna admit to a crime you didn't commit to the police, even if you did do it. You'd go like, "Nah, I ain't did that." But what happens? They try to get you food to make you seem like a canary, or they start doing psychological warfare on you. They have you hemmed up in this room for hours, won't let you have an attorney present, won't let you leave. They're battering you. They're speaking down on you, straight up manipulating you. And this has been proven. When these cops use certain tactics, they're literally rewiring your brain to make you believe that you committed a crime you did not commit. And once they break down your mental, they start giving you the details on things they want you to say. They're like, "You got the girl." "Yeah, I got the girl." "You snapped her neck." "Yeah, yeah, I snapped her neck." Then you buried her and put fresh dirt over her body so no one would notice. "I did, I did." And now you admitted to a crime you did not commit because you went through psychological warfare. You you have sleep deprivation. You were exhausted. You was hungry. They yelled at you. And not just yell, like straight up get in your face. And you can't fight the police. You can't fight the police, y'all. They're degrading you. They calling you all types of names. And it goes on for hours and hours and hours. And don't let them put them paws on you either. Because if they start punching you, slapping you, kicking you, if you go through that enough, you gonna mess around and admit to some stuff you didn't even do. So you talking about intentions, like y'all are forgetting that these people are witches and warlocks. Our government does some of the most ancient spells known to man. Hello? That's not to say that our stuff isn't powerful, but y'all are purposely not only misunderstanding, but underestimating them as well. And that's exactly what happened with Powhatan. The spiritual leader of his nation told him, "Hey, you need to do something differently with these pale people. Because if you don't, we're going to lose the war. We're going to lose the battle." And he ignored him. Like, be so for real, y'all. And look at this. It's so long. Connecting with or invoking the supernatural and especially the devil. What? Very sad, gloomy, marked by the occurrence of disaster. This is literally spells that you put on yourself. And y'all holding on to it because y'all think it just means that. Having dark skin, hair, and eyes. Characterized by grim, distorted, and grotesque satire. Let me get off this. Let me X out this. Cause okay. Cause I talked about that girl talking about the 1924 Racial Integrity Act, right? Talking about they called us black during that time or whatever. So I want to go over this, right? The United States Census timeline measuring race and ethnicity across the decades from 1790 to 2010. Okay. So I zoomed out because I wanted y'all to see the full page. Okay. So from 1790 to 1810, the racial categorization in the first decennial census of 1790 was a reflection of Article 1, Section 2 of the newly ratified United States Constitution. Okay. And look, it says slaves, free white females and males, and all other free persons. Okay. So you see that. And then 1820. 1820, 1830, 1840. In the 1820 census, a new racial category for free colored persons was introduced, reflecting the different rights free whites and free blacks had, as well as the growth of the free black population. But they were seen as free colored persons. They just put black in there because, well, you get it, but is actually free colored persons. So mind you, they weren't calling folks black initially in the census. But then in 1850, for the first time, a category was used measuring a black blood quantum, termed mulatto, for free inhabitants and slave inhabitants. Okay. So we're seeing this black now. Because mind you, it shows you right here all the categories that they had. But honestly, the term black has been around before that. But I'm just letting y'all know. 'Cause y'all keep bringing up this Racial Integrity Act like it's the only thing that involves reclassification. And then they finally added Indian in 1860. Excited it. In 1860, census takers were instructed to enumerate only American Indians who were taxed. Taxed American Indians who were those who had renounced tribal rule and exercised the rights of citizens under state or territorial laws. This primarily included American Indians who had settled in or near white communities and who had assimilated into American society. Americans not taxed were considered to be those who lived among their kinsmen in tribal communities. So they wish that, I'm not gonna play with you today. I'm not gonna play with you today. Okay, so Life said they've created passive aggressive systems to isolate and hunt us, but we can die on our feet, but we gotta die someday. Why give in to them? Their opinions only matter to those who want to be them. If that's the case, then why call yourself black then? Like you literally just dissed yourself. Why? They've created passive aggressive systems to isolate and hunt us. So why submit to that? Why continue to call yourself black? Why call yourself Negro then? Because the point is to fully embrace your indigenous roots, the names of the ones that came before you, not cling on to the labels that they have given you. Because you just said they created passive aggressive systems, and them systems created terms to erase our identity. And that's the thing. Like, this is what y'all are forgetting. If you know that they have created passive aggressive systems, then guess what? You know your indigenous ancestors knew that too. And they was like, well, we're not going to submit to this system that, first of all, is invading on our homelands. They sit there and invaded our spaces and now trying to tell us how we should identify. Exactly. Oh no, my battery's getting low. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Hold on, real quick. Hold on. I'm back. It's charging now. It's charging. If you hear covers moving, it's me getting comfortable back in my bed again. Oh no, what? Oh, it done unplugged itself again. Hold on. What the hell? What the hell are you on? You better charge. What? Where is it doing that? Okay, there we go. My charger was starting to make me nervous, y'all. What the hell? Here, I'm gonna have to do it like this. Okay. Okay. So we good. We good now. We good. All right. Sorry for the technical difficulties, y'all. So yes, as you can see, they have been gracious enough to show us their deceitful ways. Oh my gosh. Honestly, sometimes I don't think this information gonna be available. Like it comes to mind. Sometimes I think like, you know what? They really gonna mess around and start deleting a lot of stuff and be like, well, we didn't categorize people by race. Oh my God, like you're a liar. I think they probably would do that. Okay, so let me share this tab. Let me move this over here. Okay, because this is the thing. This is what a lot of y'all are coming into on TikTok. Okay, how Virginia used segregation law to erase Native Americans, or how I prefer American Indian, but I digress. Okay. So a lot of y'all are coming into this information. Anytime when I talk about anything pertaining to paper genocide or what I like to call ID alchemy, here come people. Walter Plecker, Walter Plecker, Walter Plecker. Walter Plecker is one of many. He is just one of the few that was bold enough to do it the way he did. People like him were usually discreet with it. There was usually like either discreet or obviously, open prejudice, right? But with Walter Plecker, he was just straight up like being like in your face about it. The way he went about it is the reason why like it's so eye-catching to the average person who don't know this information, right? And like that girl was talking about, 1924 Racial Integrity Act. So on March 20th, 1924, the Commonwealth of Virginia enacted the nation's cruelest, most, I don't know how to pronounce that word, segregation law. Designed to preserve white racial purity, the legislation became a model for states across the Jim Crow South and beyond. Okay. So, okay, here we go. Okay. Some white Richmonders, though, weren't satisfied. They worried about a loophole in the law that would dilute the purity of white blood. Leading white supremacists had wanted the Racial Integrity Act to solidify Virginia's black-white racial binary. To do so, they called for the act to erase the presence of indigenous people. In the coming decades, some used the act to do just this, engaging in a form of bureaucratic genocide to recast indigenous people as black, rendering them less visible in the historical record. The legacies of these policies endure to this day. And I get why a lot of people push the subject of this because, like I said, it's very blatant, it's very in your face, and it's something that people can't deny that happened, right? Because you can look up this act in its facts. Okay. So I'm not going to go over this whole article because we already know. We already know. Okay. So for Virginia's Anglo-Saxon clubs, the Pocahontas Clause represented an open invitation for light-skinned African Americans to try to pass as Indians or worse, white. Okay, so that's what they fear. So Walter Plecker agreed with that BS, and Plecker despised the Pocahontas Clause and lobbied lawmakers for increasingly draconian. I didn't know how to pronounce it. Whatever segregation laws. Between 1912 and 1946, Plecker served as a Commonwealth's registrar of vital statistics. In this position, Plecker turned to old census records to rewrite history and prove that people claiming Indian blood were actually Negroes. Under Plecker's reign, Virginia reclassified hundreds of Virginia Indians going back to the 1850s from Indian to Negro. But here's the thing. A lot of you are not from Virginia. A lot of you don't have ancestors from Virginia. Okay. And the thing is, with this alone, you would think that was person would be like, okay, well, dang, I never noticed how reclassification worked. So let's fix this. No, no, people are very comfortable. with what they have been given to identify as. Because being called Indian was already an ID alchemist term, right? And whether you believe in Christopher Columbus or not, the term Indian was not a term that indigenous people created for ourselves. The people on the island that he met, the Taino, they did not call themselves Indian. He called them Indian, or should I say Indio. So it's already disconnected. That's already an X right there. Like y'all, people are not like putting the strikes against these people like they should. It'd be one thing if he was like able to come up with a term with indigenous people and be like, okay, well, I can't pronounce how you pronounce your name for yourself. Can we meet somewhere in the middle? No. These Europeans were not doing that. They're like, you know what? It's easier for me to give you this name. Let's just go off that. Rude. Not only did you come in my house, not take off your shoes, tracking mud everywhere, taking everybody booty, but you don't even want to let me have my own name? You want to take away my name and give me something else? Oh, that's another reference from Spirited Away. Okay, what's that girl name? I gotta look up her name right quick. Hold on, cause I think of the name Ren, right? But I don't think that was her name in the movie. Yeah, her name was Chihiro. Her name was Chihiro. But then she took her name. No, okay. So Lynn or Ren, that's that servant girl that helped her. So damn, what the hell was her name in there? When she took away her name. Okay, there you go. Okay. So in Spirited Away, when Chihiro signs away her name, from henceforth, she's known in the bathhouse as Sin. And guess what? If she can't remember her name, she can't go home. Hello? That is some deep stuff. You can have everything else about yourself, but your name is pretty much one of the only things that's keeping you from going back to your world if you don't remember it. Besides uh that lady besides that lady Yubaba keeping her there, her parents. Cuz Haku told her, he was like, "Hey, if you don't remember your name, you're not going to be able to go back." He's like, "That's why I've been under Yubaba this whole time. I can't remember my original name." So your name is very important. These people want to take your name from you. Your name tells your story. Yeah. On some ruby red slipper. Yes. Yes. So that's the importance of it all. So I'm gonna go now. Y'all, please don't be mean because I cannot pronounce this name. Like I looked up how to say this word, and everybody say it differently, and it makes me upset because why why everybody saying it differently? I don't know. So if I mispronounce it, my bad. Hold on. I have this on mute. Hold on. I don't know how to pronounce this. I'm sorry. My bad. Okay. Kawawiltikan. Kawawiltikan. So that's how I'm gonna pronounce it. So if you mad in the comments, some of you pronouncing it wrong, my apologies. I looked it up and they had the natives from Texas pronouncing the words and they said it differently too. I'm like, why ain't nobody saying this the same? Like I don't know, y'all. I went through a whole rabbit hole trying to listen to different people say it, but I'm not gonna stress too much about this. So anyway, so this is the history of Texas, right? When it comes down to the indigenous people, right? So what we have to understand is ID alchemy didn't start with Walter Plecker. It started when these people came over here, invading our lands, tearing up everything, didn't even bother to get to know us, and just gave us generic names in their language. And this is a prime example. Okay. So it starts off by saying the lowlands of northeastern Mexico and adjacent southern Texas were originally occupied by hundreds of small, autonomous, distinctively named Indian groups that lived by hunting and gathering. I don't know why they made this so wordy, but y'all know what it is, okay? During the Spanish colonial period, a majority of these natives were displaced from their traditional territories by Spaniards advancing from the south and Apaches retreating from the north. The Spaniards had little interest in describing the natives or classifying them into ethnic units. There was no obvious basis for classification, and major cultural contrasts and tribal organizations went unnoticed, as did similarities and differences in the native languages and dialects. Spaniards referred to an Indian group as a nation. Nation. I don't know how to pronounce that either, so be mad. I don't know. And described them according to their association with major terrain features or with Spanish jurisdictional units. Only in Nuevo Leon did observers link Indian populations by cultural peculiarities, such as hairstyle and body decoration. Thus, modern scholars have found it difficult to identify these hunting and gathering groups by language and culture. There go the paper genocide right there. Giving folks a name and didn't even bother. to describe them or classify them into ethnic units, which is really not their place. Let's just be honest, because they don't like. Honestly, now this article's pissing me off, but it's honest. It's also brutally honest too, because it's showing you like they really don't give a damn. They ain't bothered to ask nobody what they call themselves, how they identify. But yet it was up to them to describe the indigenous people and classify them into ethnic units. You see how messed up that is? Okay, let's scroll down. It's all wordy. So we're not gonna go through all this. I'm just saying y'all right now because I don't know why. Just look at all that. Look at all these words. I'm not gonna read this whole thing they got going on. I just wanted y'all to see what I mean by how they were going about labeling people and how that affected indigenous people so on in Texas. Because mind you, I'm an Aboriginal Texan, okay? I'm from Texas. I can't tell you nothing about Virginia. Well, besides, me talking about the Racial Integrity Act. But still, like, I can't tell you what be going on over there, like what be going on over here in Texas. Okay? So that's why I tell people like genealogy is a part of learning your state's history too. It's good that you're learning about Virginia, because Virginia was just ground zero for the BS, y'all. Like these folks use Virginia as a testing ground for what they wanted to do with others in other states. So y'all know how that goes because we just read about it. But anyway, so this is Texas, okay? So in the second paragraph, it says the first attempt at classification was based on language and came after most of the Indian groups were extinct. Pause. They're already trying to push the narrative that most of the Indian groups were extinct. Were they extinct or reclassified? Or just written out of history, period. We gonna get to that in a minute. Sorry. Sorry. I needed some water. Okay, in the mid 19th century, linguist designed some Indian groups as I'm sorry, y'all. I'm gonna be serious. Serious. It's just every time I see this word, it just like I just feel like no one is pronouncing it how I need them to pronounce it so I know how to pronounce it, Because I'm telling you, like, if you go on YouTube and you look up this word, like, everybody says it differently. And it's like, okay, which one is the right one? Okay, anyway. Anyway. So, okay, so Kawahu Kawateco, Kawateco. I think I'm pronouncing it right. If I'm not, oh well. Believing they may have spoken various dialects of a language of Kauhulia. Kauhula? I'm about to start giving these little code words or something because I can't be struggling like this. This is horrible. Okay, let me be for real. Let me be for real. Okay. Okay. And Texas. Okay. Mind you, It says Kauteco, Kauteco, Teco, Kauteco is a Spanish adjective derived from Cow. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce this for nothing. Okay, I know some of y'all may say I look Mexican, but that don't mean I know how to speak Spanish. Okay, this is Spanish. I'm not that good with Spanish. Okay, so as y'all can tell, I'm not good with Spanish. But anyway, they tell you that this word comes from the Spanish. All right, so it comes from a Spanish adjective derived from this. Okay, so I wanted to point that out. Okay, so it says two friars documented language and manuals for administering church ritual and one native language at certain missions of southern Texas and northeastern Coahuila. Neither these manuals nor other documents included the names of all the Indians who originally spoke Calahuteco. Calahu- Calawilteco. Calawilteco. Okay. But the thing is, they just told us that it comes from Spanish. So, how did they originally speak a language that comes from the Spanish? I don't know. But here we are. Okay. Um, in time, other linguistic groups also entered the same missions, and some of them learned that word, the name, the dominant language, okay, of the Spanish adjective derived from Cawilia, Cawilia. I don't know. I know y'all tired of me hearing me struggle, so I'm gonna leave it at that. But in the end, y'all know what I'm talking about, okay? So they are grouping people based on language at the first attempt of classification. So honestly, this is not new. Some of us have already heard this story before, like when it comes to how they identified indigenous people, because that's just what they do. Like for some reason, a lot of the times, like they identify us by languages. And I think it's kind of weird. But then again, they didn't bother to ask them like how they identified, how they spoke their language or what they called their language. This is just something that they gave them. I think it's weird. I think it's really weird. Hold on, water break. Trying to pronounce all those Spanish words made my throat dry. Cause what the helly? So then it goes on to say that they lived in the coastal plain in northeastern Mexico and southern Texas. And honestly, reading this sentence makes me realize like why some people think Texas is not a part of the South. Because Texas is literally a part of Mexico, to be honest. But y'all get it. Okay. And so the region thus includes southern Texas, northeastern Coahuila, and much of Nuevo Leon and Child. I don't know how to pronounce that, but y'all can see it on the screen. Okay. So I wanted to show y'all guys this because this is literally how they identified indigenous people in Texas originally, already giving folks a misnomer because they literally told us that it's a Spanish adjective. So that's the thing. Like that's why it's important to learn the history of your state because it's not going to be the same for everyone. Okay, historic accounts describe these people as highly mobile family units of hunters and gatherers that resided near rivers and streams. By the late 1600s, outside Native American groups with access to European horses began moving onto the South Texas plains. And I also want to mention this too, because I don't know if they put it in the previous article I just showed y'all, but also they were able to get away with classifying indigenous Texans out of history due to not only misnomers but also war too and forced relocation. So it may not be as blatant as Walter Plecker, but it alludes to it. Some states are more bloodier when it comes to writing indigenous people out of history because we have all heard the broken record before. Oh, they died by diseases. They were displaced and all this other stuff. Oh, they were extinct. Baloney. Bunch of baloney. When first encountered, there were likely hundreds of native bands living in central Texas. However, within just a few centuries, most native populations were gone forever. Conflict, okay, here we go. Conflict among rival native tribes, as well as conflict between Native American groups and European settlers, combined with newly introduced European diseases, devastated the native societies, which I feel like they also really like pump up like the diseases because and when I say pump up the diseases, I'm talking about like the effect diseases had on indigenous people because they want to push the narrative that oh, it's the disease that killed off the aboriginals. Like, no, no, it wasn't the diseases. If they were to be like, hey, war and famine was killing off indigenous people, that th- in my honest opinion, that would be more accurate because that's actually what happened. In Texas, like the buffaloes roam here, and these people are notorious for killing off our food sources to force us to starve. Yes, exactly. Exactly. I'm just reading the comments. So when it comes to Texas, honestly, when I come across the history of Texas, it's like always like bittersweet because then I'd be thinking of like things I learned in Texas history class and just like how we were taught things because mind you, mind you, some of the information that people talk about online referring to like the Moors and stuff like we kind of learned that in school. If I remember correctly, we did learn about Esteban too. I don't recall them saying that he was a Moor though, but Esteban, he was a Moor. But for some reason they don't mention that. But that's the thing though. Um they claim him to be a slave. I do remember them saying that though. I do remember them saying he was a slave. And honestly, like in school, it just never really made sense to me. I'm like, he's a slave. Okay. If he's a slave, why he with y'all, helping y'all so basically conquer stuff. For some reason, they never really tell us the full story. Never tell us the full story. They told us the full story. You say that the Caldwell Taken's name comes from how you pronounce it? Natal. Well, it doesn't say anything like that in here. Across the board, it says it comes from Spanish. I did see it come up on Wikipedia that they said it comes from the natal word, but I don't see any sources backing it up, and I don't go off Wikipedia. Okay. All right. I'm seeing where you get it from now. I'm seeing where you see that. So I looked at this one, right? They're talking about them, and I see that they said the word that this word derives from the not Nahu. I cannot pronounce that word either, but it's derives. Just know if they talking about it derives from an indigenous word, that means they remixed it. They remixed that word. Spanish adjective. And supposedly that word comes from this word. But funny how they don't tell us what the word is. We might as well not speak no language. We have to communicate by eyesight or something like blink twice. For yes. Blink one eye for no. Telling the truth on any level breeds more questioning, and they don't want that. Hold on. Telling the truth on any level breeds more questioning, and they don't want that. They want to keep you quiet and thinking that you know what it is, so you don't look for what really happened. Exactly, because I'm never gonna go 100% off what these Europeans have to say. Period. Nope. That's why I tell people all the time, I'm not against the information people are putting out there. I'm glad people are sharing information. It's just simple fact that look at who we have to learn this information from. Like it's kind of like we have to almost badger them into telling us at least partial of the truth of whatever the topic is about. We have to keep asking questions until they admit it or at least finally admit some of it. And there's an article that I want to go over, and I've been meaning to do it for years, but for some reason I just have not like recorded it. But it's about how anthropologists are talking about how they can't racially identify skeletal remains. And I'm like, oh, oh. I may just do a live about it because I think it would just be easier on my part than to just like try to record the whole thing and then upload it. I may just do a live about it. But I want people to think about that. They have us arguing about whether we all come from Africa, what these remains are linked to, and these indigenous remains link back to this indigenous nation or whatever. Whole time these people are now coming out talking about, well, it's tricky to identify the race of a skeleton. What? What do you mean? We have honestly, when I read that article, it just further solidified why I don't argue or debate about scientific studies relating to race and who was originally here in America or anywhere else. Because these people be not only lying, but they be guessing. And they have us arguing and debating amongst each other, doing these think pieces on information that we're not actually seeing in person. And I actually wrote about this in my book too. I tell people, like, you know what, when you think about it, we're not in the lab with them. We don't see the charts that they're making when it comes to these remains that they are researching and that they have supposedly dug up. They're not showing us how they are able to come to these conclusions in real time. They're coming back on the screens and explaining, like, oh well, we tested the DNA against this person and it came back this, and it's like, okay, but how was you able to come up to this conclusion? Like, tell me in science terms and then break it down in layman terms for me. Don't just tell me what you did. Tell me what you know and tell me how you came to that conclusion step by step. Could these people be lying? Anyway, I don't really like this website, 64 parishes, but it's I rather talk about the subject on this website than to talk about it on this one, right? Because it's literally like the same thing. They talk about the same thing. And I like to get my sources from like universities. You know what I'm saying? So this is about a man named H.L. Billiot versus Terrebonne Parish School Board. Okay. In 1917, the Louisiana court system ruled that Native people occupied the same legal status as African Americans under Jim Crow. This is Louisiana. No one's not talking about this though. But they quick to tell you about this. Oh, anyway, let's go back. Okay. And like this article said, hold on, let me go back. So between 1912 and 1946, Plecker served as Commonwealth's we went through this, okay? So we seen how, he reclassified hundreds of Virginia Indians from Indian to Negro. And not only that, but I'm trying to go back to that part that we talked about. Ah, okay. In the coming decades, some used the act to do justice, engaging in a form of bureaucratic genocide. So this case is very similar to this. But mind you, this happened before the Racial Integrity Act of 1924. Just putting it out there, okay? So in 1917, the Louisiana court system ruled that Native people occupied the same legal status as African Americans under Jim Crow. Now let's read the background, okay? So Billiot, the plaintiff, had attended public school in the 1890s below the Terrebonne Parish community, alongside both white and Native American people, which probably explained why he not only wrote with a strong and confident hand, but also why he was comfortable in both communities. In 1916, he was 32 and residing with his family along Bayou du Large in Terrebonne Parish. Given that his three sons, Harry, Walter, and Paul, had progressed beyond the point where he could tutor them and that they were of mixed Native American and white ancestry, he gained permission from Terrebonne Parish School Board Superintendent H.L. Burgess for the boys to attend the nearby Fogout, Fogout School, an all-white elementary school. Okay, so or withdraw them from the system. To which Billiard replied that if the Terrebonne Parish School Board maintained its policy of racial segregation, that it was required to provide separate but equal facilities for all racial groups. His children were not black, but that aside, the black schools were inferior to the white ones. Billiard filed suit, and on February 3rd, 1917, H.L. Billiard versus Terrebonne Parish School Board appeared in front of the 20th Judicial District in Houma. Y'all see? Y'all see how trifling these folks are? Okay, let's continue. Let's get it on, okay? Now get this. The court record is a welter of languages, names, varying interpretations, documents from the colonial and federal periods, and recollections of events that transpired in the mid 1800s. Given the region's legal and cultural conventions in 1917, arguments centered on whether the Homo plaintiff had any record of black lineage, which could have excluded his children from white schools in Terrebonne Parish. Unable to prove its initial claim that H.L. Billiot had African ancestry, the school board changed tactics and focused on his wife. Ain't that some BS? Testimony hinged on her maternal grandfather, King Billiot Jr., and whether his parental grandmother was Spanish and therefore legally white, as claimed in records, or whether she was African ancestry. Thus, Harry, Paul, and Walter would enter Foucault School or be denied admission based on the racial or ethnic status of their great 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 grandmother. They just grasping for straws. Now here's the ruling. On March 12th, not March 12th, I'm sorry. On March 26, 1917, the judge ruled for the Terrebonne Parish School Board that both H.L. and Billiot were of mixed Native American and white ancestry was freely acknowledged throughout the trial. More importantly, while lawyers could not prove that King Billiot had African ancestry, they argued that he might have had African ancestry. And this is a insurmountable barrier in the Jim Crow era. Billiot filed an appeal the same day, and in April 1918, the Louisiana Supreme Court ruled that damages did not meet the $2,000 minimum required for it to hear the case. The court based its decision on lost education and that each child's schooling would have cost approximately $10 a month. For legal purposes, the Billiots were no longer members of the Houma Nation, but were now classed as African American. no longer members of the Homa Nation, but were now classed as African American. Ain't that some BS? I'm telling y'all. That's why I say like we can't just always look at Walter Plecker. Like there was other stuff going on too. We had the colonial period, and then we have the 1800s where they were like really trying to like put that paper trail and take off with it. But then Jim Crow really just sealed the deal. It was the nail in the coffin. As a part of the historical literature on indigenous people in the Southeast, H.L. Billiot and Terrebonne Parish School Board is not unique to the Homo nation. On the contrary, the case fits squarely within a body of federal, state, and local decisions in which the dominant culture assigned racial and ethnic status to a tribe. However, Homos view this case as very personal to them. First, it showed how prominent tribal elder could be publicly humiliated when he went against the legal and social structures of Jim Crow, Louisiana. H.L. Billiot was educated, a property owner, enjoyed the respect of Homa and non native communities, and supported his son's schooling. For those who wanted indigenous people to gradually blend into the dominant culture, Billiot seemed to be the ultimate success story, but all his qualities counted for nothing. Moreover, the ruling devastated the rest of the tribe given its intricate and tightly woven kinship systems. The decision that Billiot children probably had African ancestry and were trying to pass themselves as Native American affected not only his immediate family, but also the rest of the Homo nation, effectively blocking them all from white schools. For their part, Homos refused to attend black schools, not because they disdained black people, but because to attend those schools would have meant relinquish I cannot talk. Relinquishing, yes, relinquishing their Homo identity and seemingly giving credence to their oppressor's determination. Though some private organizations stepped in to provide small schools that usually stopped at the sixth grade, Homas and Terrebonne Parish did not gain access to high quality public education until March 1963. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Homos and Terrebonne Parish did not gain access to high quality public education until March 1963 after a ruling in Naquin versus Terrebonne Parish School Board. So you see, it's not about being ashamed of being black. It's not about denouncing your blackness because this nation, they knew that if they were to attend a quote unquote black school, they would have to relinquish their Homa identity and giving credence to their oppressor's determination and determination of what? To reclassify them wholly, to write them out of history. They could be like, oh, see, they're black all along. Let's not even see them as indigenous people. Let's just start taking stuff. Like it's very unfortunate too, right? Because I hate how sometimes things are worded, right? Because sometimes like in these articles they make it sound like, oh, indigenous people just wanted proximity to whiteness. And that could be the case for some of them. They saw white people with the good things and with the higher education, and they're like, okay, well, we need to go over there. Like, we're seeing how our homeland is becoming, so we need to position ourselves to be in a better position. So I get that, it's assimilation. They're trying to survive. And I'm not going to judge them for that because obviously I'm here speaking English. I am a high school graduate, you know? So I can't talk mess about them assimilating into white society when I too have assimilated into white society. So it's not like we all had a choice. But the thing is, they understood the importance of keeping their indigenous identity. They did not disdain black people, but they didn't want to relinquish their Homa identity. And they shouldn't. They didn't want to give these fools the satisfaction of calling them black. It's an evil world out here. Actually, maybe I will show y'all this one. So this is like the same article I was telling y'all about that talks about basically the same thing. Actually, you know what? Maybe this is a different one. I could have sworn they talked about the same. I'm sorry. It's the same thing. It's not the same thing. I'm sorry. It's not the same thing. This is actually a different story. Thank you so much for the donation. I really do appreciate that. I really do. I'm glad that I'm able to show y'all guys a different perspective and show y'all guys new information because there's so much to learn. And I don't know everything. Like, y'all heard me struggle to even pronounce some words in this life. But it's authentic. I'm raw. Like, you know, I would never pretend like I know everything because I don't. And knowing everything requires too much responsibility. I'm just saying, like, it's already hard to let go of things that you once thought was true, but it's another thing to keep gathering information, and it not only like reframes how you think, but you start to humanize the ones that came before you, right? Because they are, they're people too. And you start to think like, wow, like they went through this. They went through all this trauma and pain and suffering. Because our ancestors, they don't live in a world where, well, obviously not because, they passed, but you get what I'm saying? Like, they lived in a world where people justified taking away their autonomy just because they were different. And that kind of hurts. That hurts because we are living in times where we can fully embrace ourselves, but a lot of our ancestors couldn't. So like I'm like when I say that reclassified Indians are not black, I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm not saying that to be hurtful. I'm not saying it because I think I'm better than black Americans cuz obviously me and my relatives have been classified as black. Like I get it. Like we're here. Like we're in the thick of it. But just knowing that like my ancestors didn't get a choice to identify who they truly are, and yet I have the chance to do so, like I'm going to take advantage of that. And the reason why I push genealogy so much is because like our ancestors want us to find them. These people be doing spell work over our documents. And that's also a part of the reason why I made my Patreon more so on the spiritual aspect of genealogy because the reason why a lot of you cannot find documents or find the documents that you're looking for to put those pieces together is because they have casted spells over them. They have casted spells over your bloodline. That's why I had to do candle magic just to remove these obstacles. And y'all already know I have Mexican heritage, right? And unbeknownst to me, when I decided to do candle magic, I did it during the Day of the Dead holiday. And it wasn't like necessarily planned. It wasn't like I was waiting a whole year to do it and I'm like, "Oh, the time is here." Like not on no like evil scientist type stuff. It's just like I was like, "Okay, well, let me try. Let me light this candle and talk to the ancestors. Let me light this candle while I do my genealogy research." Boom, wham. And what's so crazy is that's when I found out I actually had Mexican heritage. That's how all this came about in the first place. So it's like crazy when you do your research doing during the holidays and the events and the celebrations that your ancestors embraced, you can break through those walls. Like who would have thought me doing candle magic to remove obstacles during my genealogy research? Because mind you, when I first started, I could not find nothing. I could not find nothing. I remember, I don't know if you remember, but if you an OG, you remember Elijah, right? You remember Elijah. I think like his username was like Elijah W underscore S something. Y'all know who I'm talking about. You know, I got, together with him and we was like going over my documents and he was like, "Yo, I can't find nothing. I can't find nothing." He only found my parents uh what they call it, marriage certificate. And I was like, "Well, damn." And then I started thinking like, did my ancestors like come from Mexico and like we just like snuck up in here or something? I like that was like the thoughts that was going through my mind because I was like, ain't no way, like, there's no documents on my family. Like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Like, why is there only a marriage certificate that we're finding? Yeah. Yeah. And I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated with not finding any information on my ancestors. It was like insane. I was saying like all the other aboriginals in the community talk about like their heritage and the things that they found, and I'm like, I'm not finding anything. It was heartbreaking. But when I did that candle magic, I lit that candle during the Day of the Dead, the records started coming in porn. And when I think about it, I'm like, the simplest records should have been able to come to me, you know? Because my grandmother participated in the census, and her folks participate in the census, and so on and so forth. I should have been found those records. I shouldn't have had to resort to candle magic to remove those obstacles to find them. That's what I'm telling y'all. They're doing stuff to the records. It's not that you don't have any documents. They just placed a spell on them for you to not find it. If you're clairaudient, you need to listen. You put your ears on full maximum volume to hear your ancestors tell you what to look for. 'Cause this stuff is like so real. But anyway, I'm gonna talk about this article and then I'm gonna hop off here because it's, oh my gosh. Y'all, I lied. I was like, I'm only gonna be on here for like 1.5 hours. And look, 2 hours later. Sorry, 2:34. God. Okay. Let me go over this quickly and I'm gonna have to go because I gotta go to bed. I got so many errands to run tomorrow. But anyway, so this is an article published online by the Cambridge University Press. Susan J. Pearson, whoever that is. Okay. Birth, registration, and the administration of white supremacy. And this is why I like academia. I know some people like, oh, I can't stand academia, this, that white man stuff, but they be posting stuff. Okay, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna need to save this. I'm gonna save it later. Because y'all know they like to be deleting stuff. Not saying like this website in particular. I'm just saying like the digital decay is in full effect. So just because you see something here today doesn't mean it'll be here tomorrow. So remember that. Okay. So it says birth registration formed a key part of the administration of white supremacy between Reconstruction and World War II. In the allotment of indigenous lands and in the enforcement of de jure segregation by states, birth registration served an important ideological and administrative function. Because allotment policy combined property transmission with family reorganization, it made documentation of identity more important to the federal Indian Office. The office imposed nuclear family structures on complex kin networks to establish access to land titles, and it used documentation to alter family relationships to fit with American property law. During the same years, Southern states used birth registration to fix racial identity in order to determine access to school, marriage, and many other benefits. Racial classification through birth registration, in other words, worked less to record the truth than to help produce it. Hmm. Mm-hmm. Hold on, y'all. I gotta drink some more water. Water break. Okay, I'm back. Ooh, excuse water. Okay. I've been on your YouTube for years on it, but my channels be getting fried because I be cutting up. You be cussing, don't you? YouTube don't play. It really don't. You have to be careful. But okay, let me go back. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to this because I don't know if y'all saw this part that I was reading, but yes, let me reread this. Racial classification through birth registration, in other words, work less to record the truth than to help produce it. In 1936, after just 1 year of marriage, I'm sorry, Cyril sued to have his marriage to his wife, Verna, annulled by a civil court in New Orleans. According to Cyril, because I don't know how to pronounce that. Sunsiri? Okay, okay, that's not bad. Okay. According to Sunsiri, Verna was a person of color, and their marriage had been illegal under Louisiana's miscegenation statute. By seeking annulment rather than divorce, Sansiri was asking the court to declare that his marriage to Verna had never been valid. The court thus had to determine whether Verna possessed even a trace of Negro blood. Sansiri alleged that Verna great great grandmother Fanny was a full blooded negress child, while Verna insisted that she was Indian. Both parties to the suit brought witnesses to testify in support of their claims, but Sinceri also adduced a trial of documentary evidence marking Decree and her descendants as colored. These documents included Verna own birth certificate, which, despite the fact that she has been born on a white maternity ward, marked her as color. In the end, the oral testimony of relatives and friends that Verna and her mother have always been considered as being of the white race by their acquaintance in the city of New Orleans could not win out over the documentary trial. Verna in the trial in appeals court found was black, not white. The marriage was annulled. So the thing is, right, we know that indigenous people were marked as colored, right? Because colored is code for indigenous for a lot of times. I won't say all the time, but y'all know, okay? So how couldn't she be Indian? Because if you're gonna go off on documentary evidence, right, the trail, and going off of great great grandmother in 1936, we talked about how indigenous people were being identified, right? Because obviously, if you're an indigenous person in the beginning, you're going to be labeled as all other free persons. Or they may try to put you as black or mulatto. And not only that, but you also have free colored people introduced in the 1820 census, 1820, 1830, 1840. So if they say this is, let me see, 1936, right? 1936. And they going by her great great grandmother. Okay. So it's like somewhere right here. Okay. That means she had to be born somewhere in the 1800s, right? Obviously. Okay. So they saying that she was colored though. So maybe the latest 1840, around there. Why why wouldn't why wouldn't she be Indian then? We were expensive colored people. Exactly. Exactly. Mhm. So they know what they're doing. Honestly, I'm kind of glad their marriage was annulled because he ain't right. He was not worth a damn thing. I'm just gonna say it out. He wasn't about nothing. Anyway, Verna, Verna's fate demonstrates the power of vital statistics, documents in determining racial classification and administering the racial state. It involved a great deal of testimony about racial reputation of Verna. Her fate was ultimately determined by the bureaucratic document filed when she was born, her birth certificate. Okay, so let's scroll on a little bit more down. Until late into the 20th century, all states and localities that registered births included information about the race or color of a child's parents on the form. This was considered a basic fact of both personal identity and population knowledge, but increased use of birth certificates as instruments of identification coincided with the administrative use of genealogical based blood quantum formulas to distribute and block access to the goods of citizenship. This was true both in federal Indian policy and state based Jim Crow segregation. This made vital documents attractive to the architects of a racial order, who sought not only to dismantle Indian sovereignty and enforce segregation, but also to impose a black/white order on the racially ambiguous, racially mixed communities scattered throughout the South. Honestly, it's a mental illness that these yeast yodelers have. The tofu tyrants go around making mixed race children and then make it their whole identity to impose a black/white order on the racially ambiguous, racially mixed communities scattered throughout the South. That's crazy. It's giving mental illness. Significantly, Verna claimed that she was descended not from a mulatto but from an Indian, foreclosing this possibility and reclassifying Indians as black under state laws was critical to the success of segregation. Foreclosing this possibility and reclassifying Indians as black under state laws was critical to the success of segregation. And this is why our ancestors did not want to be called black because they was not going to give them that satisfaction. So it has nothing. I mean, honestly, with the natives on the reservation, they're a different story, right? Okay, because I know somebody gonna be like, well, the natives on the reservation. We're not talking about them type of people. Like we talk about our ancestors specifically. Okay, so with the classifying Indians as black under state laws being critical to the success of segregation. And then you have homos refuse to attend black schools not because they disdain black people, but because to attend those schools would have meant relinquishing their homo identity and seemingly give credence to their oppressor's determination. Do we see a pattern here? It's a pattern here. So no, our ancestors did not hate themselves. They wanted to identify with their indigenous nations. And there's nothing wrong with that. But they foresaw how this was going to go. They was like, hey, we can't allow them to call us black. Not because they hated themselves, not because they thought black people were dirty, dingy, ugly, all those things, but because they knew if they was to be put in this category, that all bets are off. And y'all already know when it comes to darker skinned indigenous people, the yeast yodelers, they had no problem classifying them as black. If you associated with somebody that was labeled as black, you was gonna be next. You was gonna be next, boo. Because reclassifying Indians as black under state laws was critical to the success of segregation. Chief among the assets of birth registration documents was not just that they marked the race of the person to whom they belonged, but also that they were the source of genealogical information in a racial caste system based on the intergenerational math of a blood quantum. You know what? The thing I hate most about this when it comes to blood quantums and racial identity and the social construct of race, they love to put math in there. Like, why are we calling people 1/4, 2/3, or something? Oh, they half Indian. Oh, they 2/3 black. What? What? I would have hated back in the day. I'm not even gonna lie. Because why we have all this math to identify people? I don't like that. Imagine like explaining your heritage to someone as a mixed race individual and they're trying to get you to do like a freaking math problem about how much ancestry you have with this identity and then with the other identity you have in your bloodline. Like, ain't nobody gonna be doing all that. They're like, are you 1/4 white? That would piss me off. Exactly. Hey, George. Hey, Pooh. I think white folks gotta be responsible for that because they do planets and other. They do. They do. They do. They always trying to like put stuff in boxes, and it's like, can you just let stuff be? Like, it's one thing to learn, right? It's one thing to understand, right? But they're not learning to understand or understanding to learn. Either one of them would be fine. It's better than what we got going on now, but they learn to segregate, to oppress, to manipulate, and that's the issue. Okay, I'm gonna continue this article. Okay, it says, indeed, centering the use of state vital registration documents to administer policies of white supremacy supports the growing tendency to integrate postbellum policy towards Indians within the larger history of racial caste. Before the 20th century, race was rarely a matter of documentation. Y'all think I'm lying when I be talking about this, but when I tell you that race is a social construct, I mean that. I'm not saying it because it sounds cool. And I'm not gonna lie. I used to be one of those people that could not accept the fact that race is a social construct. But when you look at it like this, you can't ignore it. Okay, let me read this paragraph before I go on the whole rant. Okay. Before the 20th century, race was rarely a matter of documentation. Before the 20th century, race was rarely a matter of documentation. White Americans treated race as self evident. You knew a person's race by looking at them. Lookism. Look. Look. This is literally look at like what's the name of this website again? Cambridge University Press. Telling you, right? Well, a lady that published this article on Cambridge University Press is telling you, and I have a feeling this is a white woman, okay? I don't know. I don't know her color. I don't know. I don't know who she is. So, don't hold me to that. But I'm just saying, it's giving the impression. I'm just saying. But y'all, they telling you before the 20th century, race was rarely a matter of documentation. White Americans treated race as self evident. You knew a person's race by looking at them. Of course, race was frequently far from self evident because antebellum state laws regulated rights and freedoms according to race. Individual racial status was frequently contested in the courtroom. When pre-Civil War courts had to adjudicate identity, they relied on racial performance to settle matters. Racial performance. That whole term just gave me the ick. Because what do you mean, racial performance? It, it's it's giving tap dancing, like like it's giving put on the show, and I don't like that. When pre-Civil War courts had to adjudicate 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 identity, they relied on racial performance to settle matters. For a man, whiteness was demonstrated through participation in civic rituals, voting, militia mustering, and jury duty. It's giving mayo. It's giving bland. It's giving white bread. Anyway, for a woman, her whiteness was a function of adherence to codes of respectable womanhood, sexual purity, most important among them. This was not simply a matter of juries using performative clues to reckon race because documentation was unavailable. Judges and juries often ignored or overruled documentary evidence of ancestry. So tell me, do y'all think I'm lying? Do y'all think I'm lying? Just let me know. Say Yona, I think you're lying. Just tell me, cause I how long have I been saying this? How long? How long have I been telling folks this? And people just like, oh, you poured it out your booty hole. No, the meth maggots knew. They just hoping folks don't catch on. As area, areola. I'm sorry. That's childish. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna say her name again though. I'm gonna call her girl. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, that's petty. I'm sorry. Okay. Childish. Childish. Wow. I'm sorry. That should not have tickled me like that. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. As area, areola, 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 Gross has argued whites had an ideological ide. I'm sorry. Let me get it together, cause like, how do you even say her name like that? Oh, okay, okay, cause like, why did? Oh my god, Yona, stop. I'm sorry. I could bad Yona, bad. Okay. As Gross had argued, whites had an ideological commitment to race as performance rather than destabilizing race, relying on performative clues, bolstered racial common sense. The notion that race was something you could tell by looking. The notion that race was something you can tell by looking. Mm. You know, back in the day, and I don't know why I said it like that because I'm talking like 30 years ago, but what I mean by back in the day, which is like nearly 10 years ago, I used to be heavily into, the scientific studies. I used to be into the Australoid and Americoid and phenotypes. If you know, you know. And I'm still fascinated with it, but I don't use that as my entire argument when it comes to the identity of reclassified Indians. Y'all are cutting up in the comments. Stop. Oh my god. Yeah. I done got distracted again. Okay. Where was I at? Okay. So, like I was saying about phenotypes, like I still pay attention to phenotypes, but it can't be the only driving force when I talk about things pertaining to not only Aboriginal Americans, but people in general. Because whether I want to accept it or not, like, not one group of people have like one, like, are entitled to just one phenotype. Especially considering that ancient Europeans don't look like the European Americans we see today in America, okay? And I don't call them European Americans because, well, they hate that term and I love that term. So I want to call them that to make them upset because that's what they are. I know it's petty, but it is what it is. Yeah, no, honestly, no, it's not petty. No, it's factual. Cause I mean, why everybody else get to hyphenate and they don't? They get to just claim to be American. But with the original people of the Americas, we have to hyphenate. No, no. Mm-mm. Anyway, okay, so and when performative criteria were used to establish racial classification, this brought communities into courtrooms to testify about the behaviors and associations of their neighbors. Paradoxically, whites' commitment to the stability of racial identity led them to rely on reputation rather than documentation of ancestry. Okay. By contrast, an individual status, whether free or slave, was a matter of documentation. Through evidence of ancestry, wills, bills of sale, and other legal instruments. Documentation, in other words, was more important for establishing freedom than it was for determining racial identity. Mm. I'm just skimming through this because. Mm, okay, let's talk about this next one. Yes, we love petty. Thank y'all guys for showing so much love in the chat. I love it. I love it. Y'all know I love y'all. Okay, so let's go to this one. Okay. The power of birth registration went beyond the simple ability to administer segregation and other blood-based policies. However, the federal and state officials who used birth certificates to sort people accordingly to race assumed that such documents provided a disinterested, stable source of information. But racial classification through birth registration worked less to record and stabilize truth than to help produce it. Because some bureaus of vital statistics possess the ability to racially classify individuals on their birth documents, they redefine the racial landscape. For Native Americans, the federal government used vital registration to impose nuclear family structures in order to allot tribal land. In the case of Jim Crow segregation, state officials did this not only through the routine processing of birth registration documents that classified citizens according to race, but also by systematically denying certain babies and their parents access to racial categories of white and Indian, foreclosing all the state and federal recognition that they entailed. Mhm. Systematically denying certain babies and their parents access to the racial categories of white and Indian. Mhm. Let's continue. Scholars of Native American history have detailed the intimate colonialism of allotment and shown how state officials in the South erased Indians in order to impose a black/white binary on a multiracial South. So again, right, we have been saying this for the longest, right? Now I came into this space 10 years ago, but guess what? There was people that was talking about this way before me. So let's okay. So this was published August 11th, 2022. So 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Now, in my honest opinion, I feel like you couldn't have came across this information like this blunt, this blatant, like you could have 10 years ago. Like, I don't know what it was, but back in 2017, 2018 era, for me personally, I used to stay up all night researching information. Like, I would be up day and night researching because the information would just not be there. Like, you actually had to dig. You had to dig through those Google pages just to find a slither of information you're looking for. But now they're just pretty much being blatant with it. And that's no coincidence. We are getting these people together because they can't hide the truth anymore. Okay. Okay, so yet the story of how bureaucratic forms, birth certificates played a role in the construction of racial classification and the administration of racial caste has mostly been ignored by United States historians. Mhm. Yeah, we knew that. For all Americans, a birth certificate has become a key that opened doors. Yet, throughout the 20th century, non white Americans, rural Americans, and those born outside a hospital were less likely to have births, have their births registered. This put both Native Americans and African Americans in a double bind. I don't know about y'all, but on my birth certificate, it doesn't say my race. I don't know why. I was looking at my birth certificate and I was like, there's no race on here. Who else birth certificate doesn't say their race? Because I find that really strange. Because on my mom's birth certificate, it says Negro for her. And then on my paternal grandmother, her birth certificate says colored. But for mine, it doesn't say race. They didn't even put my race on my driver license. That's crazy. Damn, so that does that mean I'm erased out of history? They erased me out of history, y'all. Now if my what they calling people? No, if generations to come was to look me up, they'd be like, "We can't find her race. We don't know what she was." And then somebody in the back was gonna go probably be like, "She probably white," because they was ashamed to say that. Y'all know how people are. They could be making up stuff. That's insane. Oh wow, this is concerning. Some of y'all are saying it doesn't say it on your birth certificate or your license. Why we all living the same life? I don't understand. Yeah, that's what I meant, descendants, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, sometimes my words be losing me, especially late at night, cause it's 3 a.m. in the morning. And y'all know me, if I stay on the live for too long, my brain cells start, like, clashing with each other, like, the last brain cell fighting to stay awake while the other ones go to bed, so I remember one time I did a live so long that I started to fall asleep. I had to hurry up and get off because I was like, "Oh, I know y'all was hearing me slur my words and everything." I was like, "Let me get off here." Okay. Let's see. Let's go over another paragraph. From the beginning, every city and state that collected birth registrations required that certificates indicate the race or color of the parents or the child. This was not necessarily for purposes of identification. Well, damn, I don't know how many times she had to say it. Indeed, throughout the 19th century, Americans rarely used birth certificates as proof of an identity. Well, and then now we got people who again snatched up out them streets about where your birth certificate at with your ID. It's crazy to see how the evolution of birth certificates and documentation has came along the way in United States history. They didn't use it as a way to prove your identity, but more so to determine whether or not you're a free person or a slave. Then they, use it as a way to perform your racial identity, which is why they are so fixated on knowing the race or color of the parents or child. Throughout the 19th century, Americans rarely used birth certificates as proof of identity. Instead, birth registration recorded race because vital registration was intimately linked to racial science. The state registers responsible for collecting registration returns and issuing annual reports of birth and death certificates were constantly frustrated, however, by how casually their fellow Americans seemed to regard proper racial classification. One part of the problem was that midwives, doctors, clerks, and parents failed to report race. And now they don't want to put the race on our damn birth certificates. Oh my gosh. It's like everything just come full circle. It's like make up your mind. They was frustrated by how casually their fellow Americans seemed to regard proper racial classification. Failed to report race. But in modern day times, for me and some people on the live, we don't even have our race on our birth certificate nor on our driver's license. Now that makes me think like the times where I had to give my driver license to the police, were they just putting me down as black or white? I'm guessing it's depending on how good or bad it is, I guess. Because in my city, well, I'm not gonna get too much into that. If you know, you know. In 1850, Connecticut Secretary of State complained that color was often left blank on birth certificates. A decade later, a meeting of Philadelphia's Medical Society, local physicians laminated the absence of accurate statistics on colored births because, as one of their group reported, the color in every instance of birth has not been designated. Likewise, throughout the second half of the 19th century, Michigan officials complained not just that certificates were returned with the wrong sort of racial classification, but also that too many were returned with no race or color recorded at all. This imperfection in the returns is to be regretted. This imperfection in the returns is to be regretted. Is that a threat? Anyway, the state registrar chided in 1879 because it detracts so much from the value of the statistics. Wow, they're so obsessed with race. Indeed, racial categories had no stable content, while statisticians or state registrars might have agreed among themselves about a discrete set of possible answers to the race or color question: white, colored, mulatto, quadroon, octoroon, Indian, Japanese, Chinese, or Mongolian. Returns on birth certificates made it clear that birth attendants did not share the same understanding of racial categories. Virginia's registrar complained that his state's ignorant midwives would indicate a baby's color with terms such as brunette, blonde, light skin, dark. That this was not just a Southern complaint. In the 1874 annual report, Michigan State Registrar reprimanded local officials for their de, der, what? Dereliction? Dereliction. Okay, yeah, dereliction in matter of race. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to spell that out. Some of these words I have not said in a while. Shit. The color should be stated as black, mulatto, Indian, white, and Indian, and not as African or colored. He grumped. Okay. Hold on. Do y'all see what I see? Do y'all see what I see? The color should be stated as black, mulatto, Indian, white, and Indian, and not as African or colored. He grumped. Mulatto color. He cool with that, but not this. Hmm. Okay. Nor was this simply a problem that plagued the early days of registration. Errors or omissions in recording race lasted well into the 20th century. Hmm. Let's see. Okay, here we go. The link between identity documentation and the racial state was on full display in Indian country. From the 1830s through the 1870s, the federal government pursued the confinement of Indians on reservations, but the consensus about the wisdom of this began to fracture in the late 1870s. Ongoing graft in the administration of the Office of Indian Affairs, OIA, brutal and well publicized military action against Indians in the West, and the exposure of near starvation among many who received rations and annuities led reformers active in the Women's National Indian Association, the Indian Rights Association, and the annual Lake Mohonk Conference to work with politicians and OIA officials to promote a new solution to the Indian problem. Freedom and equality for Indians, they believe, would come through assimilation. Assimilation would require education for children, the adoption of Christianity, the reformation of gender roles through the institution of legal marriage, the end of matrilineal systems of descent, and the allotment of private property to individual Indians. Hmm. Y'all, so I may do a part two of this article because it's so long. It's so long. I need to do a part 2 of this article because this girl, she is telling all the beans, y'all. She telling it. Yeah. See, they telling themselves they do. But it's good though. We want them to tell on themselves. So people can't sit here and say that we're lying. Cuz the issue is that people don't think for themselves. Right. They don't think for themselves. And that's why they think we're lying about our ancestry and the things that we went through. They'd be like, "Oh, you're just self-hating. You don't know what you're talking about. You know, indigenous people have always been labeled as indigenous." And it's like, no, like you really don't understand the fight of my ancestors, and it shows. So yeah, I mean, honestly, isn't there like a universal law that they have to tell you what they're gonna do to you before they do it, or while they're doing it? Thank you, life. I appreciate y'all coming on this live and joining me. Thank y'all for hanging in there with me. Cause when we was talking about the those indigenous nations in Texas, like I was struggling. Like, oh my gosh, like I have not struggled with words like that in a while. But thanks for hanging in there with me, y'all, cause I don't know what was going on. I don't know. I don't have time for stupid because it's a choice to be ignorant. Exactly. And nowadays, people just act like it's a superpower to be ignorant. I don't like that. But anyway, like I said it before, there's so much more to learn about Aboriginal American history. And I hate how people just kind of reduced it to like a TikTok soundbite. And I know I keep, going in on the TikTokers, but it's like they are the ones that are consistently going toe to toe with the natives, which by the way, I don't know why y'all are arguing with them folks. Like I could care less about the natives. I really do. And people ask me, why don't you ever make videos about the natives? I'm like, because I don't give a damn about them. I don't give a damn about them natives. And plus, too, I'm actually going to do a video on this too, but the Asians are actually claiming the natives on TikTok, and the natives hate it. They are trying to disassociate themselves from the Asians so bad. They'd be like, "Oh, we're not Siberian, we're not Asian. Oh, this is native erasure." Okay, girl. We know what it is. Yeah. That's why I don't even care to like even go back and forth with them. Like people know like the truth. Like them Asians, it's an Asian dude and the Asian girl, and they be going at it with them. Like it is so funny. All I can do is just sit back and laugh. Cause them natives, they be so mad. They be like, "Oh my god, they calling me Siberian." I'm like, "Well, wasn't y'all the ones bragging about being the ones that carry 9 repeat ally in your DNA, which is linked to Siberia?" Mind you, when I used to debate with them, they would talk about that. Tell me, "Oh, 9 repeat ally. You don't got that. You don't got that." Yeah, of course I won't have that. I'm not from Siberia. I heard it's cute there, but yeah, Pookie, maybe you should go visit your cousins because y'all look so much. But anyway, us learning history is not about them. They try to get us to argue with them so we won't research things. And then we're wasting precious time and energy on them when we could be saving information, sharing information, exploring new information, or information that people don't really talk about. Y'all ever watched Avatar, The Last Airbender? And remember when they went to go attack the Fire Nation and Sokka was letting Azula get in his head? Like she was like basically like fake fighting him. Well, he was fighting her, but y'all know Azula, she too cool with it. Like it was basically a game to her because it was. She wasted Sokka's time and he missed his window to help Aang fully take over the Fire Nation. Just imagine if Sokka would have went in position in time and not even mess around with Azula. Because mind you, the Fire Nation loses their little fire powers for like what, 7 minutes or something? And he wasted a whole 7 minutes fighting her when he could have followed out the plan. I'm just saying. I know I keep referencing like animes, and yes, I consider the Avatar, The Last Airbender, to be anime. Okay, judge me if you want to. I don't give a damn. But yeah, they want us to waste time on them, so we're not looking into our own ancestry. We're not looking into history. We're not doing what we need to do. So that's all I have to say. Thank y'all guys for watching and thank you so much for the super chat. I really do appreciate you. But I'm like falling asleep at this point. Like I tried to hang in there, be an OG, chipper OG, but my sleep is just calling me. So we're gonna finish like this article at another time because it's very detailed and I have nothing, nothing left in me, energy wise, to keep going. So I need y'all to be safe. Thank y'all guys for watching this video. Be sure to like and share this video. Comment your thoughts below. Tell me what you think, okay? I love y'all guys, and I see y'all guys in the next one. Bye.